Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Copenhagen, Denmark. That's where I currently am, and that is where I will currently be for the next 4 days. And then I will be going to Stockholm, Sweden, where I will play against Grandmaster Pia Kramling in the Battle of Generations. So if you're watching this in October of 2024, that's what's going on in the chess world. Now, you might be watching this at some point in the future, in which case you are about to be treated to one of the most catastrophic games of chess you have ever seen. This game almost ruined my entire vacation. See, I was on the plane, and viewers send me games sometimes. They say, hey, Levy, here's a game. I want you to analyze it. This game was so bad, I wanted to ask the pilot to turn the plane around and bring us back to New York City. That's how bad it was. My vacation has almost been completely ruined by what I am about to show you. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, tomorrow, October the 25th, a collaboration video will drop on this channel like you have never seen before. Set your calendars, 9 a.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. here in Europe. The one and only Magnus Carlsen will be making an appearance. You've been warned. And again, if you're watching in the future, you can, you know what to do. Go check it out. Okay. I can tell you what that video is going to be called. It's going to be called I Played Magnus Carlsen. That's going to be the name. Okay, so the person that sent me this game is named Lorenz. And Lorenz is Austrian, and if that's not how you say it, then I apologize. Lorenz single-handedly almost ruined my entire trip, so you're about to see why. His opponent in this game opened with the move e4. All right? I'm going to turn off feedback because I don't need chess.com to tell me any feedback in this game. Maybe it'll listen, maybe it won't. We're going to find out. Lorenz responded with d6. Okay, it's not listening. It's going to continue to tell me the analysis. That's fine. Black plays d6. White plays knight c3. We have this move e5. Perfectly reasonable so far, until the very third move, which is queen out to f3. Now, the engine evaluates this as a green check mark. I don't really know why it does that, because that's... Now, I suppose white has some nasty intentions to develop the light-squared bishop and deliver a checkmate to black, which is... I mean, it does win the game. And then queen takes f7. Lorenz plays c6. I can't really explain this move, but the computer is dealing with 300, so it's not being too mean. And now, for whatever reason, the person playing with the white pieces, who's named... well, names are changed slightly, so, we don't reveal everything. Pijov plays, instead of bishop c4, queen h5. So we were having a little bit of hesitation here, queen f3 and then queen h5. Ooh. Lorenz plays a very nice move, knight f6, very principled, given a little green star. And white plays queen g5. I don't know why this move is given a thumbs up. This entire video could just be kind of laughing at the feedback function. Black plays d5. Okay, perfectly reasonable move. Except for the fact that it loses a pawn with a check, which white proceeds not to take. So we have d3, okay? Now, I'm going to try something really quick. Okay, magic. Now that we don't have to deal with the feedback anymore. White plays d3. I don't really hate this move, but this pawn can simply be captured. We have a trade in the center. And now is where the fun begins. Black plays the move h6. It's a very common beginner mistake. You attack a piece, you don't think about where the piece is going to go, and the piece can absolutely take a pawn right now, which it does. The queen takes a pawn with a check, and black blocks the check with a bishop. White is enjoying a +1 advantage because white just won a pawn. The light-squared bishop goes out to c4. It's a great move. I don't know why the computer hates this move so much. The computer wants queen to g3, attacking the pawn on g7. You know what? Look, for a beginner, bishop c4 is an excellent move. Black castles the king. White develops another bishop, and The computer now thinks that black is better, but as far as I'm concerned, white is doing exactly what you should be doing, just developing pieces, completely developing. In the last 3 moves, look at this. White has developed a light squared bishop, a dark squared bishop, and a knight. This is very, very, very good play. Queen a5. Now you may be wondering, why did the evaluation bar jump up that high? It's because the queen is hanging. Queen a5 just straight up, I'm going to move this camera around a little bit, just straight up loses a queen. There's absolutely nothing, there's nothing stopping white from playing queen takes queen across the board. When I saw this move, I physically recoiled. I couldn't believe myself because black spent 10 seconds just giving up the queen. I mean, you would think, like, you know, my most powerful piece, I should probably protect it. Now, none of that really matters because white went here. So the queens are just having a staring contest. Now, I think at this point, Lorenz was like, oh my god, what am I doing? All right, well, let me get rid of my queen for the queen because without my queen, I can't lose my queen. Actually, pretty wise. Now we have bishop takes e5. Now, the 300 elo brain is really interesting because you go queen a5, you hang a queen in 1 move, right? Your opponent plays h3, and you go, oh, wow, okay, my bishop is hanging, but thank God he didn't take my queen, right? So I'm going to take the queen first, and then I'm going to move my bishop, except you just don't do that, and you lose the bishop. So somehow you see that the bishop is targeting the knight, and you go, me no like that, but me forget that me bishop can be taken by the pawn on h3. So yeah, we move the knight out of the way, and white just plays pawn takes bishop, because that was white's other idea. And now black plays, obviously, you know, simple chess. Look, you got your piece taken, so now I need to take a piece because I can, and now white takes back because white can. And white is winning, right? White is just a full knight here. The way you win this position with the white pieces is you castle your king. You can try to start an attack. You can try to use these pawns to break through because the king is here. This king can go that way. You can also play moves like rook d1, knight into d7, make a trade. Also, knight g6 is a cool move. Can't be taken because the light squared bishop is pinning the pawn to the king. So a lot of possibilities. Black plays bishop b4. Don't hate it. All right. White goes a3 because white is like, are you going to take my knight? Because I'm up material, so I actually like trades. Black absolutely trades. So Lorenz was like 5 seconds on this move, boom, boom. Played 20 moves, 8:28 on the clock, down a bishop. That's how we do it out here. And now it gets even worse. Remember how earlier in the game there was this moment black went h6, attacking a queen, but just forgetting that the queen could take the pawn. Another very common beginner mistake, which you got to stop making, guys, you got to stop making it, is moves like rook e8. Rook e8 in a vacuum is a good move because the rook just moves and attacks the knight. But every time you make a move in chess, you've got to think, what was I doing? And the rook was defending a pawn, and right now bishop takes f7, defended by the same knight that's being attacked, and the rook just hangs. And Lorenz is going to go down even more material. But Pichu defends the knight. A principled man. The knight is hanging, it must be protected. The king runs away, and suddenly Pichu's like, oh, knight takes f7 check. King h7. Now, the way you win this position with white, you advance, you probably castle your king, you keep pushing, you probably promote a pawn, you make a queen, you go on and win the game. Instead of that, Pichu goes here, which is kind of creating an attack on the black king, but you're leaving this to hang, which is a fork. Now, lucky for you, you can still block with the bishop, right? Your king is hanging, your bishop is hanging, your pawn is hanging, but you can save 2 of those pieces at the same time, and this is not how you do it, and Lorenz has won the bishop on c4, but luckily for Pichu, he's still winning, because you can take on h6, and after you take on h6 and black takes back, you can take with the rook. You can probably also take with a knight. But the point is that the black king is extremely weak. Extremely weak. Now, you may have, you might experience a similar level of shock to me, because in this position, after marching all his pawns forward, Pijuv decided to also lose his knight. Why? Why did he play knight takes h6? There was no reason. I mean, the pawn can just take the pawn. Why did he play knight takes? I was like, what? Why did he do that? 7 minutes on the clock, guys. Playing a 10-minute game. Knight takes h6. Okay, black takes. I mean, Lorenzo's, not Magnus Carlsen, but he's close at this point. Pawn takes it. Guys, what are we doing? We're down material. Two things matter in chess, material and king safety. We at least have to go for the king. We have to attack the king. Because also, after you play rook h6 and king g7, you're going to double, right? Rook f4 is possible, but then you have rook h7. You might play f5. You might even be winning just easily because you double the rooks you play. Look, rook f4, f6 check, king g8, rook here. I mean, this is like a winning position for white. White is just getting to the king. But g takes h6, and now that's it. There's no more attack. Now black will just hunt the pawns. That's exactly what black starts to do. Just kidding. that would have been good, but no. That's definitely not what happened. So white plays rook b1. Make a move that makes no sense. But in this case, okay, it's a nice attack on the b7 pawn. Black plays knight c5. Good move. Defending the pawn on b7. Rook is coming to d8. If the rook goes to d8, the king has to abandon these pawns. Black will take, black will take, black will probably take this pawn. Probably white will simply lose because there's no attack on the black king. The only chance that white had was that attack on the black king. White plays rook b4 because when you are losing, you should trade more pieces because that way you have no pieces to defend yourself with. And if you have no pieces to defend yourself with and make legal moves in the future, you may get a stalemate. Right? Stalemate in chess is when you are surrounded, but you are not in any danger. So that is white's game plan, except it's not. That's not white's game plan whatsoever. Black takes on b4, which apparently is a mistake. Black should have started with rook d8 check. And then, like I said, taking these pawns. Instead of that, rook takes b4, and actually Pijuv is a genius, because now the game is back to equal. Why is the game back to equal? Well, white has 3 pawns for the knight. I mean, if we count the material, both sides have 11 points. Rook and 6 pawns is 5 plus 6. Black has rook 3 and 3. So it's even. Knight e4 check. The king goes to e3. Black begins eating pawns. Now, black is still winning. Black is winning because you're going to go knight d5. You're probably going to win a few more pawns. These pawns are a bit too slow. The only chance that white has here, the only chance is using the pawns to get to the king. If you can get to the king, not only are you back in the game, you may very well win the game. What you should not be using here is your king. This guy is not going to change the game at all. And, again, at 300 level, you're like, ooh, king attack horse equals good move. No, we have to use the pawns here. Okay, king attack horse. Black goes back to b5. I don't know why we went to b5 in 5 seconds when we could have gone to d5 and attacked 2 pawns at the same time, which cannot be protected, but I'm just asking questions, okay? Knight to b5. Again, the only chance you have here is by utilizing all of your pawns together. You've got to bring all the pawns together. You've got to bring the king to e4, f5, g5, g6. That is the approach. You really shouldn't go with the lead pawn because black can split you and win the pawn on g2. But black doesn't do that. But white pushes the pawn to die. Yeah, this is not really going to work. Rook f8, and I mean, now if you play rook f1, I take on h6, and then I take on g6. Yeah. King d4, that doesn't stop anything. Rook takes f6. But this is tricky. This is tricky because your rook is hanging, and your knight is hanging. So what do? If you say knight to e8, you're not really wrong. That's actually a completely reasonable move. And then you move the rook, you probably take on h6. If you say rook g6, yes, good move. And then later you can move your knight, you can figure something out. What you should not do in this position, when you have 2 pieces hanging, and they are really your only 2 remaining important pieces of this game, what you should not do is play rook takes h6. Because even though you win a pawn, your opponent now not only takes your rook, not only do they then take your knight, they are going to feast on your pawns. You gave them direct access to take the rest of your pawns. This is hopeless. You lose this. Rook takes h6 is one of those moves where the game ends so fast you don't know what hit you. In a span of 3 moves, you lose your rook, your knight, and all of your pawns. Just like this. You got 720 minutes. You boot up a 10-minute game, and 32 moves later, you have spent 2.5 minutes. It doesn't. Which is why I was even more shocked when white went rook d1. Why? So the idea of rook d1 is pretty simple. You want to win the knight. Now, white went here because white saw the knight was defended, but saw that the king was also attacking it. Which means if you saw the king is attacked, why couldn't you have... Okay. Rook d1. Black responds with a knight move. The king goes to f5. The only thing you need to worry about in this position with black is rook d7. You got to be careful about your pawns. Rook h5 check is fine, but now you're a bit stuck. I would go rook d5 here. I would trade the rook, and then I would try to win that endgame. After rook g5, I would probably start eating some pawns. But be careful. Black does that. Now there's rook d7. Now the responsibility is on black not to lose absolutely all of your pieces. At least defend your knight first and then solve the problem of these pawns later. Rook f2 check, king e4. Okay, rook e2 check. Yeah, I would be careful in endgames giving checks for no reason because all of a sudden after king d3... Okay, that was not the best move, but fine. Rook f2, and the knight is protected. Instead of that, black plays rook to e6, which simultaneously loses a knight, but not only does it lose a knight, you begin losing all of those pawns. And now this is a losing endgame. It is a losing endgame because you're going to lose this pawn for sure. You cannot defend it. And after you lose this pawn, I have 2 pawns versus 1. I'm going to bring all my pieces forward. I'm going to promote my pawn. You're going to have to lose your rook. The endgame is going to be king and rook versus king. And obviously, even if these players combine their elo, I'm not sure they know how to checkmate with the king and a rook versus a king, but that doesn't matter. That is where we are headed. But as we know, there are more twists and turns. Pawn to a6. c3. Rook d6. King c4. Great. That's it. We made it. Rook d5 is a good attempt, but why are we not just forking? Why is the king stepping out of the way? Okay. By the way, a5, great move. And you know what's crazy? This is now a draw. That is insane. It's a draw because you're going to lose your pawn, but your king now is getting closer. So what you needed to do here is you needed to win the pawns fast. You needed to win them before black could consolidate. Now you're not winning them, and the game is a draw. But of course the game is not a draw, because after rook c5, king b4, now black loses more time, loses the pawn on c6, and walks directly into probably what is white's best move of this entire game, the simplification. The simplification into a winning king and pawn endgame. You have to know these endgames. This is a winning king and pawn endgame for several reasons. Number one, it is not a flank pawn. A and H pawns almost always end in a draw as long as the defending king can get close. But because this is not one of those, if the king is in front of the promoting pawn, it can shoulder check, like in hockey, a player away, right? So you're shoulder checking away and you escort the pawn up the board. This is excellent technique. As long as the king stays in front of the pawn. I'm saying king b6, shouldering, taking space away, king b6. Now it's still winning, but the king has to stay in front of the... Well, we tried. We tried. Oh! That's because to defend this endgame, you gotta stay in front of the king. Which is forgivable. This is a hard endgame. King c8. The king has to go in front of the pawn. King c7, king c5. And now black clutches it and plays king to c8. Realizing at the final stage of the game, you have to go back. Because this way, wherever the king walks in, you meet the king there, and that is the way you secure the draw. This is why at the very last moment, Gotham subscriber Lorenz pulls a rabbit out of the hat, absolutely clutches the defensive performance, and after king to d6, he does exactly what he set out for, which is moving into the opposite direction, allowing the white king in, securing the final two squares, and promoting the pawn into a queen. And Pijuv does exactly what he is supposed to do in this position, pushes the pawn, stalemates the black king, and like all perfectly played games of chess, they end in a draw.